You ever feel like you're being watched, that someone is listening in on your phone calls, that your privacy is being invaded? Well, it happens to people all the time and for a variety of reasons. And yes, it is legal. It's legal. It's legal.
In Jeremy Bentham's theory of the panopticon, the use of an overseeing eye was invented so as to give prisoners the sense that someone was monitoring their every move. In essence, Bentham's invention was nothing more than the way of using uncertainty as a form of power over citizens, in which the citizens are forced to govern themselves to be self-obedient. With the advent of new technology in America such as scarcely visible surveillance cameras and transportable devices such as camera phones and pocket-sized video cameras, the overseeing eye is evolving. Institutions are no longer the only entities that monitor and reprimand citizens' behaviors. We have entered into a participatory panopticon in which fellow citizens' gazes are just as discriminating and vigilant as those of institutions such as the government. What was once a singular and uncertain eye has transformed into a guaranteed eye with multiple lenses. Not only are citizens being watched more thoroughly, but they are now expected to participate in the gaze as well. Yet with this responsibility comes the question, are we responsible enough to become our own trial and jury? And furthermore, do we really have a choice? Contemporary films such as The Matrix and The Truman Show depict, in an exaggerated manner, how citizens are subjected to surveillance. In both films, the main characters, Neo and Truman Burbank, are constantly being watched. While these films may not be exact representations of normal human life, they succeed in instilling the feeling of being watched, a feeling which is becoming common for people within American society. Unlike Neo or Truman, normal citizens are not lucky enough to evade or overcome the eye of surveillance. Instead, humans are forced to choose between conforming to the behaviors that the eye wants to see, or combating surveillance and the power it derives from us. This resistance consists of a paranoia that duplicates and reflects surveillance, a system entitled Sousveillance. Sousveillance is the inverse of surveillance. While surveillance means to watch from above, sousveillance reverses this notion and translates as to watch from below. The most vivid example of sousveillance is the Rodney King incident, which spurred the LA riots in April of 1992. In this act of sousveillance, a bystander filmed an African-American man named Rodney King as 4 LAPD officers excessively beat him in a completely unnecessary situation. What this piece of civic journalism portrayed was disobedience from a government-based institution whose purpose is to maintain obedience. When this video was released to the public, it caused a major uprising in Los Angeles, in which the citizens' power was successfully asserted. However, in addition to watching those above, sousveillance also encompasses the observance of those on the same level, as it inflicts a sense of self-reflective responsibility. While sousveillance can initially be seen as a reaction to surveillance, in practice it becomes a reinforcement of surveillance, as the overseeing eye of governing institutions is joined by the eyes of the citizens. Kingsley Dennis describes sousveillance as an inverse reflection of surveillance, which holds up the mirror and asks the question, do you like what you see? Sousveillance acts as a form of paranoia in that it leads an individual to think that he or she will be persecuted since he or she is always being watched from multiple angles. Inversely, sousveillance leads one to mistrust others and consequently observe their actions in order to make sure they are not deviant from laws and standards. It is in the process of watching others that sousveillance acts as a reflection of the surveillance which it is afraid of, providing a greater public transparency than before. In such a transparent society, an individual really has no room to deviate from regulations and cultural standards. One illustrative example of this took place in South Korea, when a young girl refused to pick up her dog's feces after the animal had excreted on the subway. Due to the girl's lack of civil diligence, another passenger on the subway car took several photographs of the woman and dog and later posted them on a popular Korean website. Personal information was soon released about the girl and her family on the internet, leading to a public embarrassment so harsh that the girl quit her education at the university she had been attending and threatened to commit suicide if her privacy was further breached. Examples such as this prove that privacy is no longer a factor that we can control, as the digital age has made it impossible to regulate the duplication and dissemination of our personal information. With the prevalence of surveillance encompassing nearly every facet of human life, the future holds no choice but to adhere by the rules. While it is not required that an individual look to find and expose others' mistakes, the next step in the system of paranoia will be the necessity to carry around forms of surveillance, such as camera phones, voice recorders, etc., in order to prove oneself innocent. This is especially true in modern-day America, where the Patriot Act allows the government to search and survey all facets of personal communications, such as telephone calls, emails, and all types of records. Sousveillanc's lack of regulation can be both positive and negative. Many sousveillance acts have resulted in positive change, such as the Witness Project's mission to see it, film it, change it. Projects such as these seek to expose human rights violations and act as a form of virtual vigilantism, which seeks to right the wrongs of others through the widespread dissemination of convincing images and film footage. Yet this form of positive vigilantism is only a small fraction of the results of sousveillance. While we have in some sense found a way to combat surveillance, we have more so embraced and enhanced its function of citizen oversight. Overall, sousveillance cannot be trusted. However, there are no rules or regulations that can ban or restrict it. As Erich Fromm states, while we may have freed ourselves of the older overt forms of authority, we do not see that we have become a prey of a new kind of authority. As a result, the question is shifted from who is watching you to who isn't watching you.